And Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas, right? Merry Christmas. That's right. They reminded me. We're going to start saying Merry Christmas again. How about all those department stores? They have the bells, and they have the red walls, and they have the snow, but they don't have Merry Christmas. I think they're going to start putting up Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas.
I love that.
The
crowd that probably got the biggest reaction in Michigan last night at his speech for that.
When was the
Merry
last time you
Christmas
heard
declaration.
a politician say that?
I know. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Joining us now, our old friend, senior
Clayton
editor.
Clearly doesn't.
I love it.
Just kidding.
I just had people talking to my ear saying, "Get to our guest."
Oh, okay. Oh,
Stop
sorry.
yapping, you three. Get to our guest, who is Michelle Malkin. She's the senior editor at the Conservative Review and host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com. Michelle, nice to see you this morning.
Good morning.
Merry Christmas.
And early Merry Christmas and joy to the world to all of you. Yes.
Well, Hillary Clinton talking about this fake news. Obviously, you've been in the news business for a long time as a journalist, and you look through you aggregate a lot of different news over the years on your websites and so forth. What do you make of Hillary Clinton's comments on fake news? We'll play that and get your response.
Yeah.
The epidemic of malicious fake news and false propaganda that flooded social media over the past year, it's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences. This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk. It's a danger that must be addressed, and addressed quickly. Bipartisan legislation is making its way through Congress to boost the government's response to foreign propaganda, and Silicon Valley is starting to grapple with the challenge and threat of fake news.
So, Michelle, legislation to combat fake news. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, that smacks of the very kind of quote-unquote fascism that all of these Trump bashers have been decrying since the election. I would file that speech under Chutzpah on Stilts, because the world's foremost fake news provider, Hillary Clinton, blame a YouTube video on Benghazi, having the sanctimony to lecture anybody else about false information and the consequences, bloody consequences thereof, is really occupying a bubble of unreality. But what we have here, of course, is a tactic. And it's a tactic that I have experienced for the last 25 years.
Right, you were speaking out about this, Michelle, right, since the early 90s.
Yes, that's exactly right, Abby, because as someone who has had a foot in old media and new media, it's clear that these people are threatened by alternative news sources that are taking away and diminishing their power. That certainly was a referendum of this past election. It wasn't just a referendum on establishment politics. It was a referendum on establishment media, and these people lost.
Michelle, how far would they go if they could with this fake news idea and suppressing voices they don't want to hear?
Well, look, we just had 8 years of an Obama administration where there were witch hunts against ideological enemies, and certainly even members of the press who were targeted. Ask some people who, have been independent bloggers about how they have been persecuted and even prosecuted. And this is why we're doing what we're doing at CRTV.com, where I have a new investigative show. Yeah, we're actually committing real journalism. That's why I'm here in Oklahoma covering a case of a former police officer who was witch hunted by a social justice mob, and nobody here in the local media wants to talk about it. Being an independent journalist, which, yes, we're going to be smeared as being a purveyor of quote-unquote fake news because it's real news, you're asking questions that make people uncomfortable, and that's what Hillary Clinton and her minions want to marginalize.
Well, we like comfort. That's the reason, Michelle. We got and things are getting a little uncomfortable right now at the Energy Department because of a new questionnaire that is causing the liberal media to freak out. I'm going to put up some headlines about this questionnaire that's being sent around by the Trump transition team to the Energy Department workers, asking them, about climate and climate change. Trump's team demands fuel fear of Energy Department witch hunt. Trump team memo on climate change alarms Energy Department staff. If they've ever gone to climate change conferences or anything like that, they have to answer those types of questions. What do you make of this?
Oh, look at that. It's the snowflakes and buttercups up in arms because Trump won. And he has the prerogative and privilege of making sure that people work for him actually agree with his views. This gives me a lot of comfort because, of course, when Donald Trump was meeting with Al Gore, some among the common sense free market environmental movement were a little bit worried, but they're putting the pedal to the metal here, and they have every right and privilege to do this. I would remind people, I have a long memory. I wrote Culture of Corruption in 2009, that the Obama administration itself was very responsible for kicking people out, firing them, pushing out people who dared to air any dissent on the climate change issue. Ask Alan Carlin, who was a senior researcher at the EPA, who basically was muzzled because he was calling attention to the outdated data that the liberal EPA was using to justify massive regulations that would cost businesses and taxpayers huge amounts of money.
Well, yeah, I mean, in any department, that's what the bureaucracy counts on, is the long-term staff, whether they agree with who's in charge, a few appointees or not, the ability to subvert things they don't agree with. Is this type of thing common, and should it be used more widely?
Of course it is. I mean, if you can't ideologically vet your own administration, what's the point of winning? I certainly hope that they're doing this with every single agency and every nook and cranny of the Obama administration to drain that swamp.
Yeah, you wonder if this was even done in this administration. It would never be really reported on, or people wouldn't be angry about it.
No, because unfortunately, Michelle, as you know, people take the bureaucracy and the, sort of the fourth branch of government that's become our bureaucracy, in some ways has become lockstep with the Democratic Party, believing in more government. That becomes a long-term problem.
And only a few hundred people are replaced
exactly
at these jobs. The thousands and thousands that actually stay there for life. And it'd be good to know.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You've got these entrenched civil servants who are the ones in charge of policy instead of the president himself. And now things are going to change, and they are not happy about it.
And you are smiling.
Michelle, good to see you this morning. Thanks for being with us.
Merry Christmas.
Take care.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Michelle.